Hello, ladies, gentlemen, those undecided, and those in between. I am very glad to be speaking to you again today. This is a six-sided dice. It is a toy. It has no inherent rules, no players, no win condition, and no lose condition. This is a game. Backgammon, to be specific, a personal favourite. It has... clatter, clatter, clatter. It has pieces, players, a win condition, and a lose condition. So, how do you go from just playing with a dice, rolling it and marvelling at its uniform distribution, to a game like Backgammon, from a deck of playing cards to a hand of poker, from digital interactive boxes to a game about managing a farm in the Wild West? So let's talk about it. But first, I think I need a cup of coffee. I apologise for the slight cut in continuity there. I had to make some adjustments for the sake of production. Unfortunately, we're not specifically going to be talking about dice and backgammon today, but about digital computer toys. A computer toy is kind of like a computer game, but without any of the win and lose conditions. In a lot of ways, Minecraft, especially in its early versions, was more of a toy than a game. It was a collection of rules and systems that the player can interact with, but from there you kind of just have to figure it out for yourself. I've always been interested in this idea, games that just kind of give you some things to do and then let go of the reins, but it's a genre that's time and time again proven quite niche. Minecraft now has the end goal of beating the Ender Dragon, and No Man's Sky has added quests and stuff like that. Even games that have a free mode component, like free roaming in Grand Theft Auto or World of Warcraft, are kept from being true toy experiences by the existence of their main quests and plots and things like that. Survival games like DayZ, Rust, and Project Zomboid are probably the closest I can think of off the top of my head to games that just plop the player down and say, oh, figure it out. Anyhow, I'm getting off topic already. This is not a video about the fundamentally niche genre of survival crafting games, though Soviet Womble does have a series of really good videos on the topic, so if you're interested in that, go watch. So coming back around to the beginning, what does this D6 have to do with game development? And why am I talking about it? Has anyone here heard of Tim Cain? He was one of the designers on the original Fallout, and he has a YouTube channel. Definitely worth a look in. He has a lot of insightful and interesting videos, which are worth a watch if you're interested at all in game design and development. Tim has a short series of what he calls toy games, starting with Coding Toys Insomnia Edition, and continuing with a series of toy updates. He's not collected them into a playlist as far as I can tell, but there's 5 or 6 of them and they're not too hard to find. Here is how Tim introduces the idea of toy games in his video Toy Update,
where I talked about toys I was making, and those are little games, and not even really, don't even want to call them games. They're like little game ideas, mostly mechanics. Things like a 3D dice roller that I started turning into a card game dice roller thing, or a procedural dungeon generator.
The main toy Tim talks about in these videos is a recreation of an old game called Star Raiders that he made in Unity. And over the course of the video he talks about the various additions and changes he might want to make to his version. The idea of building a toy and designing a game from that simple core kind of took root in my brain. It would occasionally pop up as I worked on one of my many system prototypes, and then immediately be knocked down again as I succumbed to the feeling of failure that came with not turning those ideas into full game concepts or demos. That all changed a few weeks ago though, when, over a coffee-drenched 3 days, I built a lost project for the sake of my portfolio, as in a project that I had accidentally deleted I had to rebuild. I'll talk more about that later, but it was while I was playing the final version of that project that these ideas kind of crystallized in my head. At this point, we need to talk about some game design theory. I didn't get to define any terms in my Sea of Thieves video, and I have been in withdrawal ever since. In a delightfully 2007 article in the publication Game Developer, formerly known as Gamasutra, which was a much better name, Raphael Kunin and Gilead Lopes outlined their suggestion for a breakdown of game design cognition, essentially a way of thinking about game design. I won't go into all the details of this rather delightful article, but it's linked in the description if you're interested in reading it for yourself. Kunin and Lopes' thesis is that there are two main avenues of design: top-down and bottom-up. While Kunin and Lopes didn't invent the terms, as they've existed more broadly in software for a long time, they do a good job of formalising it for game design specifically, with this lovely simple diagram which outlines the 5 layers of design. Top-down design starts with the broad concept of the game, the elevator pitch, and works down through the design layers, adding narrative context and deciding on mechanics, systems, and game actions to match the general pitch and narrative tone. Bottom-up design, by contrast, starts with your basic game actions and adds narrative context after the fact. It's the difference between deciding that you want to make a game about a hero battling their way out of hell, facing off against hordes of demons, and from there coming to the first-person shooter genre, versus deciding that you want to make a game about a guy who shoots big guns, and then from there deciding that perhaps fighting demons is a better decision than like a street massacre, and therefore coming to the setting of hell. Both of these are describing Doom, but they come at the design from opposite directions. I actually told a bit of a lie earlier. Kunin and Lope's conclusion was actually that the entire process of game development involves multiple iterations of both of these avenues of design, but we're talking about this as a starting point for creating your game, rather than a unifying theory for the entire development process. Just felt that was important, because I don't want any comments accusing me of not reading the article properly. Does all of that make sense? No? That's unfortunate, because we're moving on. Today I'm suggesting an addition to this theory: middle-out game design. Where top-down design starts with an elevator pitch and bottom-up starts with a core game loop, middle-out design starts with a question. How would I implement that mechanic? Of the 5 layers that Kunin and Lopes outlined, the one we're most interested in today is the core, the features and content of your game. The name is rather self-explanatory, but to elaborate, and I quote, give me a second. Features, on the other hand, are the mid-level description of gameplay, often represented as use cases, squad control, vehicle riding, and broad system descriptions, price fluctuation, or real-time cloth physics, which comprise the different ways in which the player can touch the game or be touched by it. End quote. Basically, I'm suggesting that instead of starting with an entire core gameplay loop, you instead start with just one feature. Bringing this back to my initial premise of the D6 and backgammon, if I spent a little while just playing with a D6, rolling it over and over again, could I use that experience to design a dice game? Well, fortunately for this hypothetical, I already have. Some time ago I made this. I called it Potluck Casino, and it was mostly just an exercise in C++, which is the kind of thing I do for fun. As you can imagine, I'm a riveting dinner partner. This is a basic computerization of a dice game where 2 die are rolled and the totals added together. An arbitrary number of players place a bet on what the total will be, and whoever is closest wins. It's an incredibly simple game, but one that's fun to play and wasn't too challenging to create in the short time I had set aside for the project. Playing with Potluck Casino, though, I had an idea for a small tabletop game collection where you can go to different tables and play different card and dice games like blackjack, poker, liar's dice, this dice betting game, and probably others. I haven't actually made that, but it's an idea I have in the back pocket if I'm ever in need of a project. This is a very basic example of using your experiences playing with a toy to design a game, so how about a more complex example? I mentioned earlier in the essay that I had recently rebuilt a project for my portfolio. That project is called Homesteader and started because I wanted to create an item interaction system that behaved like the one in Sea of Thieves. 3 for 3 on Sea of Thieves mentions in these videos, by the way. The basic idea was to create a first-person character controller and add large and small items. One large item can hold 3 small items, like a treasure chest in Sea of Thieves, and you can carry each of them around. It was a simple exercise and I had it working in about an hour. The thing is, while I was playing with that, I thought, man, I should make it so you can sell these. And before I knew it, just under 30 hours had passed, and I had built a system of small and large objects where 3 small objects can be placed inside a single large object, a day-night cycle with synchronized in-game clock, a Skyrim-esque rest feature for passing the time, rudimentary horse riding, storing items on the horse, a system of loading a wagon and selling the contents, and structure building. This project obviously has issues and things I would do differently. Lumber should be an inventory item and you should be able to buy it from the market menu. The balance is absolutely abhorrent. Off the top of my head, it costs like 5 wood to build the first type of structure, and then 50 wood to build the second type. That is an insane leap, and it takes about 10 in-game days to build one grain silo. That is 10 tedious, boring days. Even just for this toy, I really should have adjusted that balance. But the quality and issues of this project aren't the point. The point was that I started out with a question of implementation, and from that I built a toy. That toy didn't really have any particular goals, just a collection of mechanics and systems. While I was playing around with that toy, both in the sense of developing and playtesting, I realised that somewhere under the balance issues and lack of art assets was at least some of a core game loop. I spent a little while playing with it and scribbling out some more notes on paper until I had a loose idea for a game set in the Dust Bowl in America in the 1930s, where you have to manage a plot of land, trying to build structures and harvest enough produce that you can both feed your family and sell the excess at market to make a profit. All while natural disasters are heavily working against you and destroying the land. Your end goal is maybe to save up enough money to take a wagon back east, like a reverse Oregon Trail, or perhaps just survive the period of natural disaster, I'm not really sure. The point is that from this stupid toy, built in basically no time, I had a basic idea, enough for an elevator pitch at least. Some ideas for games that could be used as reference and inspiration. The farming elements are quite Stardew Valley, but it's got the more oppressive tone and the family management systems of Papers, Please. I had a mechanical core, a narrative setup, and at least an idea of the technical challenges I might need to overcome, as well as solutions to some of those challenges, which means I had covered the top, middle, and the bottom of Coonan and Lope's diagram. That is a lot of design to have got out of such a small project. This is where I think the value lies in this avenue of design thinking. It will not magically invent a game for you, and it should go without saying, but not every implementation challenge or toy game will result in this kind of idea. I got really lucky with both Homesteader and Potluck Casino having fun ideas to shake out of them, but I've made plenty of systems demos, like this one with a spaceship travelling system, which kind of didn't shake out into anything. I had a few ideas for stuff that might support it, like ship maintenance, but I just couldn't flesh the idea out. And that's fine, it happens. I took what I'd learned forward, and I'm actually repurposing the ship repairing system into the indie game I'm currently working on, called Station 77. You might be wondering what makes this any different from a demo, and realistically the answer is not a great deal. The differences are in intention rather than end product. Usually you build a demo with at least a basic foundation of what you're aiming for, whereas I'm suggesting using a toy game as a way of building that basic foundation. From there you can build your demo from scratch, or build it on the back of whatever system your toy was built around. Basically, a demo usually has a couple of objectives and a completion condition. Toy games don't. Demos are also usually built with more intention, and toy games are more like the game development equivalent to improv, with each new feature and mechanic being a yes and of the previous ones. While I have discussed all this in the context of game mechanics, it applies to all disciplines of game development. To pull an example from Coonan and Lopes, if you wanted to figure out how to implement real-time cloth physics, doing so in a capacity where you can play around with it in the context of a toy, say for example creating a cloth simulation and then draping it over a marble or some other entity which you can direct around an environment, so you can see the cloth getting dragged like a blanket over a cat, and how it kind of distorts against the game environment, that experience might give you some idea for a cool abstract game where you play as a blanket and your goal is to capture a house cat who's intent on escaping, like a weird cross between Journey and I Am Bread or something, I don't know. It's just an idea I pulled out of thin air, but hopefully you get the point. Hi all, editing Ian here. I do apologise, the camera has eaten the video footage for this next section, so you're going to have to make do with the audio and some ambient footage that I've found. Apologies for that. Back to the video. So, here's the thing. It's easy to forget, but it's important not to underestimate the value in playing. Playing tabletops and computer games, sure, but also playing in every aspect of your life. As game designers, having the ability to look at the world with the whimsy of a child and find a game in anything is a big part of how we can create interesting and new experiences. It's a fairly well-known story that at least part of the idea for Pikmin came from Miyamoto's interest in gardening, and I think that's one of the best examples of the kind of whimsy that a good designer can bring to anything. The human brain is like a sponge, and we absorb so much stuff from the art that we consume, the world around us, and the dumb conversations we have with friends, That I think the greatest skill you can have as a designer is the ability to be playful with the world around you and to filter all of that through your own lens of interests and technical knowledge. This will produce a greater quality of work than any idea generation you can come up with. Middle-out design is a design style built on curiosity and play. If you're ever wondering if it's possible to implement something or build a certain system, give it a go. Don't worry about explaining it or justifying it. Figure it out after the fact, then play with the results, experiment with additions and adjustments and subtractions, and let yourself imagine what the gaps might be filled with. If you've ever found yourself playing a game and being frustrated by its failure to meet its own potential, and thought about ways you could change it, you've already done this. It's just a matter of honing that skill. Most of all, remember that this is just an exercise. It's an activity, so have fun with it, don't get too stressed. Hopefully this all made sense and was useful and interesting. My last couple of videos have been really well received, and I would like to continue to match, if not exceed, that quality of work. Thank you very much for the aforementioned support and for pushing this channel over 200 subscribers, which was a tad surprising if I'm being honest, and for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please like and subscribe on your way out, and go watch some of the videos that I've linked in the description. Have a gander at my previous videos if you haven't already seen them, or go build something, write a design document, I don't know, I'm not your mother. I need to get back to working on the indie game I'm developing, but I will try and make a video about the process of that, so keep your eyes open. I'll also try and pick out a topic for another video in this style that might be of interest. Hang tight, hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.